Hey everybody, welcome back to another one of these yap bouts thingy things. Um, I kind of wasn't gonna do this one for a while, funny enough, and then I literally found myself just staying awake like Clark, just thinking about this, just being like, oh, well, what about this and what about this, and oh, this is an interesting thought. So I was kind of just like, okay, you know what? Let me just get it down. Let me do like a little listy gisty, and just see like how much things I have. And I had a lot. So um again, well, I guess I didn't say it for the other things. But this isn't exactly like a review necessarily. It's just kind of like some thingy things that I wanted to touch on, kind of talk about. And yeah, I mean, if I had to say a review, I mean, it's good. Go watch it if it's still in theaters. I think it is. Actually have no clue. But all right, for the people who somehow auto-played this and did not see the title because they could not. I'm talking about The Backrooms 2026. Lovely film. Lovely film. Go see it. Go watch it if you like horror. If you can do horror. Um all right, let me just get into the things I have written down here. Okay, so the first thing, someone was talking about this in a review where like they liked it, but they kind of said that they wanted to be a little bit more like the Descent. I don't know if anyone's seen that before, and I was kind of thinking about like, oh, I should probably mention spoilers. I'll probably do a thing at the beginning too, but yeah, spoilers for like this whole ass movie. Um, again, not a review, so I'm not going to literally be like, oh, well, I did like this when this happened, etc., etc. But basically, going back to like the Descent thing. Yes, this is why I write shit down. This is important. Okay, um, Kane, Mr. Pixels, Mr. Parsons himself, the 20-year old. Wow, 20 years old making movies. Basically said that like he does want to do more with this world, possibly like more movies, more than likely. So I was thinking like, oh, that could be interesting for the next thing in this series. I mean, obviously I don't want to see more of. Well, we're not going to see more of Clark, but I don't want to see more of Mary. Like it would be cool to. I think that'd be interesting, but I don't necessarily want this to be like a full series just following like one character through this world. I think part of what makes this so interesting and part of what makes it work is this idea of how everything's kind of connected but not connected. Like you could just watch the film on its own and just watch it on its own merits and enjoy it. Like I watched it with someone who had no knowledge of the series and they still had a fun time with it. And I was like, okay, no, this is good. This is important and this is like well done in that regard. But Descent. Basically, the thing with the Descent that I was thinking about was it has a really well done like character building because basically it establishes its characters while also immediately getting into the situation. Whereas because I was thinking about this and I was like, oh, well, I feel like if you're having characters, you need to have like, I don't know, 10-15 minutes to kind of establish who these people are, like how do they work, all these kinds of things, like what are their goals, what are their ambitions, etc., etc. Who are you, But how do you do that and then also say have like I'm describing all this, but some people haven't seen this. The Descent is a movie about caving. So it's like they go down into this cave and then shit goes down and then they get like trapped down there, right? It's like a 127 hours, but like in a big like the whole cave, type thing. But either way, they're stuck in there, they're trapped, and then like fucky shit starts happening. And so that actually makes a lot of sense for like a backrooms kind of film to go in that direction. Because I was like, oh, this would actually be very interesting. Of like they get in there and then they lose the exit, and maybe they are chased by something, but it's not like immediate, because same thing with the descent, like fucky shit happens, but all of that. Yes, fucky shit happens. But it doesn't like happen immediately. It obviously kind of eases you in because it's kind of like there's two types of horror, and that's kind of the same thing that Backrooms does so well. Is like it's the horror of just the space and being like lost in the space, and then kind of like in the because there are some people that were like, oh, well, there's not always creatures, but in the original post, it very expressly says, if you heard something, then God forbid it heard you too. So, like, even in the original version of it, it did kind of imply that there were creatures, or that there was like something there, you know. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to speak to about that. I think that would be interesting, especially the idea of like something that's actually in real time could be kind of interesting, because consider the I didn't want to talk too much about the original like series, right? Like the actual analog series. I kind of want to talk about it on its own merits. But at the same time, though, the series kind of works because you can tell it's like, especially in Found Footage 3, which is like my favorite one, it's hours. It's so long, you know, but it's cut down into what, like 45 minutes. So there's kind of this idea of like, okay, um what are we not seeing, you know? And I think obviously it's like what we're not seeing is just a lot of like aimless wandering, but if you have aimless wandering with fucking great actors, and actors is the biggest thing, you know, like multiple people in there kind of following the three people at a time going in, you know. And like it's like Blair Witch, you know. I think like a Blair Witch type thing would be very interesting, which kind of reminds me of something I can't kind of speak to, basically about like the found footage aspect of it. I think is just very well done, very interesting, and there's definitely like an evolution in the style, because like this series, okay, fine, I'll talk about the thing because I'm comparing it, because I'm naturally gonna compare it, but the series has its moments of like traditional direction, and they're great, but it's just as great, you know, when it's actively the found footage. And I think this actually has a pretty good balance for the most part, even though I will say the most horrifying sequence was definitely the actual chase, you know, or yeah, I guess it was the chase. It was kind of the running, right? And that kind of found footage of him picking up the camera and then just sprinting, you know, which was very, very well done, very unnerving, very freaky deaky, you know. But I definitely wish that it was longer. I get why, is because like the time spent on that is less time spent on world building and character development, which I mean there's definitely world building. Like there's kind of again, I saw an interesting video basically saying that like stuff like the slide at the beginning was basically the inciting slide was tilted because it's kind of representing when you go down a slide, and then it's like your sense of like, what do you call it, like orientation or whatever, is kind of just flipped around upside down. And I was like, oh, that's like very unique, you know, like that makes sense. Or the Christmas room, which is kind of like going down in the middle of the night, and the only light you see is like the Christmas the Christmas tree, you know, which I thought was like very interesting. Um, um Oh, okay. Well, here's kind of a funny thing I was thinking about, and this was the initial thing that I was like, "Oh, well, this is all I have to talk about," and like I feel like I could describe this in one sentence. But so Hereditary and elevated horror, I feel like this is kind of in leagues with that, or at least it's just because like I pretty recently watched it, and I was kind of realizing that both do the same thing. Basically, like it's relatively overt about its I almost said like extra sensory, but I mean it's definitely like it's paranormal, or it's like unexplained, but like it's kind of like strange themes, but then it's also still connected to like its actual like how do I even describe this? Like it's emotional themes, like it's character work and stuff. Like it's horrifying as much because of the characters involved and like what they're going through, as much as like the situation that the characters are involved in. Although I will admit, obviously, this doesn't have that um inevitability, I guess, that Hereditary has, because like on a rewatch I immediately caught it. I was like, oh wow, you know, this is interesting, you know, but avoid fucking anything else about it, or try to, because I want to stick to just room spoilers. Um Now, speaking of themes, so I heard some people saying a lot of different things. Some people saying like memory, which I mean, obviously the fucking async made MRI machines. So it's like it makes sense, right? But the thing I was thinking about was kind of about, and I don't know if this is the right term, but escapism, basically. And kind of how, like, if we look at our kind of our three characters within this, like the three ones that kind of we really follow and actually have like the most depth, basically being Clark, Mary, and Mr. Async, the Async guy, Mark Duplass. I'm pretty sure it was Mark Duplass, Patrick Duplass, or whatever. I was probably right the first time, but yeah, he did Creep, really good horror film, very good found footage horror film. Highly recommend it. The thing I wanted to mention was, in regards to like escapism, essentially, was that all of them obviously are self-medicating in different kinds of ways. Mary's using like medication that more than likely, more than likely, did not get prescribed. Like those meds were not prescribed to her. And then Clark drinking, and then Async dude is kind of a interesting, I guess, exaggerated version, because he's just like, oh, I know, I'll go ahead and go into the what do you call it, the back rooms, the complex, the names for the space, essentially. And basically all of them obviously kind of have some level of consequences for that, right? Yeah, essentially. I don't know if maybe consequence is the right word, but basically, like, I mean, we know what happens to Clark. He fucking dies as a result of this escape. Well, he dies as a result of like refusing to change, essentially, of basically just staying as he is, just saying like, I accept this, I accept who I am, but I accept who I am as a, I want to say, as a bad person, but I don't know if it's that simple, but basically, yeah. And then with Mary, so is it ever expressly said, because I was thinking about this, that she was the one that called on her mom to have them take her? Because I was thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, I can completely understand that, like, that kind of, like, blaming herself for that if she was the one that did that, and that's kind of what leads to her escapism through, like, writing the book and, doing the therapy and things, right? Which, again, not again, because I'm saying this for the first time, but you are allowed to help people through things while still struggling with your own things. Like, that's completely fine. That's acceptable. That is a acceptable course of action. But basically, just to like still be thinking about that, and obviously kind of reflecting a little bit of that into Clark kind of there at the end. But basically, obviously, her consequences is like this kind of like, oh, I must be the assistant, I have to do the right thing, I have to save him, I have to save everybody, kind of thing, ends up leading to her um witnessing a horrific event, and seeing something that their minds can't comprehend, which I just think is very interesting, like how I almost want to say Lovecraftian the Backrooms is, like, as a concept, because just the base idea, of like you're going into this space and it's somehow familiar but also like unfamiliar, and I just think it's really cool that it's all practical. From my understanding, like, especially seeing like some of the set videos behind the scenes and stuff, I kind of assumed the Captain Clark was CG, so that was really cool to know that that was actually like a uh real fucking dude. I guess it was the same guy who played the monster in Alien Romulus, Romulus, but this, yeah. So that was really sick. The still lives looked really cool. I think that's the most like Lovecraftian kind of like otherworldly type thing, which is interesting because considering the fact that, like, in my opinion, I feel like the Backrooms is kind of like organic. Like, basically it, I mean, obviously we know that it's always existed, like, before uh how do you even put this? Like, before Async found it. Like, they just opened the door, they opened the threshold like into this thing and basically found this way in, and then we're like, oh shit, free storage. It was just like so peak capitalism. It's just like, oh wow, this is like infinite storage, and like we can put businesses here and housing and things here. Which like that was one thing Kane said, and I think it was like the interview with Windigoon or something, basically where he was actually saying that like the Backrooms isn't necessarily like a negative thing. Like it's not like it's just this evil space or something. It just is a space that exists and maybe can be used for good and maybe can be used for bad. And it's like maybe async isn't the best people to seemingly have like the monopoly on this, but then it's like the question of like who should have the monopoly on this? Who should have control over something like this? Maybe nobody. But maybe if nobody has control, then somebody's gonna try and take control anyway. You know, it's kind of like it's I I speak of Lovecraft, but I've fucking never read anything Lovecraft. So I don't know if that was I was about to be like, I don't know if that's a theme in Lovecraft's work. Like if that's a thing where they I don't know, they try to like use the fish people or use the power of Cthulhu to power something or whatever, you know. I was talking with a friend and they kind of said that that's a very just general common trope, but it's a common trope because it's real. I mean, uh, the good media examples like Doom, Doom 2016 with the fucking Argent energy. You know, it's like, oh yeah, we can just use power from hell. This is perfect. This will never go wrong for us or whatever. You know, even though I do kind of love the idea of like basically they really were like async was just chilling, you know, it was just like, oh yeah, that's cool. We can use this for storage space or whatever. And then they find the footage of the dude like getting attacked by the monster, and then they're like, oh shit, yo, we got to look into this, you know, and like now they're doing more explorations to try and find the creatures, which like, okay, I really want async side stories. Like, I know if we get another movie or when we get another movie, it's probably going to go deep into the Backrooms again, but I just kind of want like even a small thing like the autopsies, you know, like that was like my favorite thing or one of my favorite things in the web series, the autopsy guy just being like, where did you get this body from? Like, what the fuck is this? Because it's like this weird homunculus kind of creature or whatever. And then I can imagine the same thing when they see the Captain Clark, and they're just like, again, Lovecraftian, like I don't understand this. They're just like, what am I witnessing here? And they're just like, cut it open, cut it open. We need to understand what this is. And the idea also of like the I mean, it's a classic trope. It's the first thing my mind came to. But like, oh, it's my first date async. I can't wait to see what this corporation does. And then like, is it happens to be the day that like the Captain Clark shit happens, or that I don't know, like the um I forget which one it was in the series, but when they find the body, right? Or when they find the no, it was Pitfalls, I think is what I'm thinking of. When they find the creature, you know, it's the that's not a fucking person, you know, and like to imagine like being one of the people in that room, just watching that footage and just being like, oh shit, you know. But yeah, I think that was the main things I wanted to talk about in regards to like that. I was trying to see if there's more. I was trying to what I don't say implicate the brain box. Oh, okay, that's the thing I was thinking of. All right, so Kane has said repeatedly. Sorry, do I say Kane or Mr. Pixels, Mr. Parsons? The director, the the fine director himself has kind of like talked a little bit about kind of inspirations for the series being like, and you can tell like Valve stuff. You know, like your Half Life and your Portal. I never played the Portal games. I want to. I've heard good things, and it's kind of interesting because it seems like Portal 2 is it's almost a movement shooter as well as a puzzle game. It's like a movement puzzle game, which I think is kind of interesting. Which fun Portal fact, they actually took the idea for the speed goo and the slow goo or whatever from some random um like a college person did like a like not game studio, but like a game test thing, and the game test was like a puzzle game that was built around those concepts, and Valve saw it and were like, hey, you want to work for Valve? And they're like, whoa, what? And then they hired them in, and then basically took their concepts and worked with them, you know, to make that into Portal 2's speed goo mechanics. It's actually really cool. Fun fact. um okay, so considering all this Valve stuff, who is our Gordon Freeman? Or who's our Chell or whatever, because like every Valve entity, obviously because it's a game, has our one man army person in the situation or whatever, right? And it's like, oh yeah, this is our main boy. That's the boy right there. That's the boy, that's the girl, that's the person. That is the entity, it's the entity that you reside in when you play. And it's like, is that, I don't know, is that Ivan Beck or whatever? I guess he's like the head of the corporation or whatever. I'm just thinking about like when we inevitably, I cannot speak. When we get the, I mean, I've been speaking for fucking 20 minutes. The Backrooms game, right? Who is our like who's connected to all of this? Who witnesses the Black Mesa incident? A kind of thing. And also like, is there a Black Mesa incident? Like, is this all going to be building up? Because we're not done with this story, So the question is like, what is the big inciting incident of like, I don't know, like the monster breaks out of the threshold and starts fucking wrecking shop and then gets out into the real world or whatever. But you know what? I trust Mr. Pixels to do something more unique than that as a big kind of like reveal, because you can definitely tell that like the scale is getting bigger. Like that entire ending, which again, kind of going back to the hereditary thing, right? And how, like, to be honest, like, I don't love the ending, but I understand the purpose of it. Basically, this kind of like explanation of stuff. It's kind of what I like about this with its ending, is it somehow gives you information while still also like keeping you like very much in the dark, which is something the series does extremely well, and this does great as well. Basically, is this kind of thing of like, oh, okay, it is spreading. It is spreading so far that it's literally to like towns and cities, right? Partially because it's taken from his memory, but it also could literally be that like it's just spreading. Because I mean, the fact that we literally saw our inciting incident was the fucked up breaker, like the breaker being built into the corner or whatever, and like powering nothing but possibly. I like to think we didn't see it, but it was actually technically powering a portion of the back rooms. So like when he was turning it on and off, it was just turning off the lights in there, and maybe if there was someone there, they're like, "What the fuck's going on?" Or the Clark Beast itself was kind of seeing it. It was just like, roar, roar, and then just kind of kept going about. But yeah, I think it's kind of like there is the immediate emotional response, I guess you could say, of this kind of understanding of like, oh, it's related to tech, or emotional tech. It's related to memory, and it's related to like it taking all the things from Clark. But there's also the scientific angle, which is kind of what I immediately saw was, oh, it's spreading, and it's like, well, what does this look like in the future? Um, Speaking of weird fucking backroom shit, can we talk about the Minecraft missing chunk thing? That was wild, and has me wonder, like, is this something that was influenced by async and all their meddling or whatever, or is this just something that just naturally exists and it's just like all of our cast haven't gone this far to see this yet? Because they've seen the mega structures, they've seen like the giant exit signs, etc., etc. Like they've seen wild shit. So it's kind of like, okay, so this is a possibility, you know, but like this is just so unique, so interesting, so fucking horrifying. I gotta admit, I'd fall when she fucking opened that little door and it fell on top of her. Like I'd fall because I already know. I would just be like, what the fuck, and I would be falling or I would be like gripping on the thing or whatever. Um, Oh, fun thing. I am like 90, maybe 80% sure that they took aspects of that chase thing from the oldest view, because that was like, it feels like very similar to her like crawling along the edge of this thing over this like great chasm, and the creature's like trying to reach but it like can't exactly, but like he knows it will make it. I was like, oh wow, it's like almost exactly the same thing, or like feels like the same kind of horror, which actually kind of reminds me, I wanted to speak to like the only thing like I understand that basically there's an increase of scale and there's an increase of like, I don't know if fidelity is the right word, but basically just like it's bigger, everything's bigger. So we get the same kind of classic like backrooms chase, of the what I kind of like to coin as like a liminal chase because it kind of does it best, especially in like found footage 2, where there's that bit where it's running, but then it's like silent. And it's like that it's there, and then she turns the corner and it's like right there around the corner. It's just like, hey, and then she's running again. Because people are saying supposedly the reason why they can chase them is because they're following like scent or something, which is why like they're able to follow people. But it seems like the pitfall beast or whatever, I keep saying pitfall, might not be pitfall, wasn't able to follow the one dude when he went through the area, because like it probably could have squeezed through that little gap, in that little area. But going back to the movie though, this kind of way of doing the chases is like it's weird because I can't necessarily say that it's unique. Like I feel like I've seen other things that have done this kind of like formatting for a chase sequence before, but something about chases like this in these very, like, I mean, liminal spaces, and running and feeling like whether you're running or you're walking, it almost like doesn't matter, like because it's a chaser. It's not a chaser. I think that's what it is. It's a pursuer, because Captain Clark just walks. It just walks with its little peg leg, and it's not a question of like if, it's just when. Like it will reach you. It will find a moment when like you just, and I think that's where the horror comes from, is this understanding that like no matter what you do, this thing is going to reach you eventually. Full stop. Because it's that simple, it's that direct, and it's that like childish in its horror. Like it's kind of the same thing as like the fear of the dark or whatever, where it's just this base thing of just like this thing is coming and you don't know like uh when it's coming necessarily. You don't know exactly when it'll reach you, because you'll know when it reaches you if you turn around and look at it. But if you're turning around and looking at it, you're not looking where you're going. So you just need to keep moving. Just keep moving. So considering the still lives were basically like that, absolutely no segue at all. We I was gonna say we Vespas in this bitch, but Vespas are segways. Are Vespas segways? Segway? I feel like I've said that too many times. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. Basically, the still life. So that was interesting, right? To learn that it seems like that's kind of what I say about like possibly organic entity, like the backrooms, because it's kind of able to just it's like constantly creating things, like it's just infinitely making, or maybe it is infinite and has always existed as an infinite entity or an infinite like situation. I don't know, but either way, when it comes to the still lives, I thought it was interesting, right? That they're basically like made of like foam essentially. So I guess it begs the question of like going back over everything else. Is that what the mold creatures were going to turn into? Was that actually like? I mean, holy shit, this is actually interesting. Okay, so foam and furniture definitely can get moldy, so maybe that's an allusion to that or something. I'm actually not sure. Um, the thing I was thinking about was in regards to not still life. Well, the still life in found footage 3. The one that chases him to the do you like air conditioning moment or whatever. I was thinking about like what is that a memory of, kind of following like more lore questions and like, oh, what does it mean, what does it mean, I was just like, I wonder like what exactly is that, or who was that, like was that actually a person, or is this like an early version with like an early approximation of a person, especially considering like the timeline, because I don't remember, or I don't know exactly. I think when does the movie take place? I don't know. The movie takes place sometime. Found footage 3 and stuff, I think, happens after, maybe before. I don't know. So I feel like it has to be after, because considering it seems like it's stronger and has more of an understanding of like how these things work. etc., etc. I don't know. Um, yeah, I was just thinking about that, and I was basically just like, I wonder, following this new revelation, how exactly does all of this work? And also, like, why do the things chase them? What are they looking for? You know, because it seems like the Clark monster, did it really just want to kill her, or did it just want to? I don't know. I mean, like, I guess so, because it was the memory of him, or an aspect of him, and the aspect of him clearly had like hatred for her essentially. So I don't know. You know, we never know. Um, anything else? Oh, okay. I'm speaking of spin-offs in the interconnected, not connected universe. Can we see what's going on with plaid shirt guy? You know, or wheelchair guy? You know, like either their backrooms counterparts or the actual people. Like if we're following this whole like memory creates the person leads to what the person is, then I'm kind of curious to see like I don't know who they were. Were they just some guy that got lost in there? Or like even if it's literally 5 seconds of just like it was one little bit of Clark opening the store and then he saw a dude in a plaid shirt or whatever, you know? And then maybe the entity was because the wheelchair guy seemed to be like partially melded into it. So maybe it was like someone shitting, someone sitting on a chair, and then it kind of like didn't know the distinction between like the chair and the person, and just kind of melded them together into like one big thing. I don't know, I think it's interesting. You know, I think I'm curious. I'm curious. Um, I don't know if I was the only one that pogged at the when Caretaker played, because I just was like, oh shit, that's like really neat. You know, to see like classic indie music, you know, like indie music, you know, hauntology, you know, classic hauntology, for those in the know, you know, was very neat. I was like, oh shit, that's really cool, you know, like, and it also makes sense because it connects. It's like a very common like liminal music in the same way that they used 747 for the trailer music, which is like if anyone like followed liminal stuff, that was like the music that they would use for like liminal space pictures set the music or whatever, you know, which I always thought was interesting. Yeah, I'm kind of going down the random ones. Okay, how long was Clark alone? Was kind of something I was thinking about, because I mean, obviously he wasn't in the most like stable mental state, and I think anybody would kind of lose themselves being in the rooms of the back for long enough. But I was definitely curious about like how long was he in there to get to that state, and like what exactly got into that state, because he seemed obviously to not be that far gone when he went when he goes in with his team, and then there's the cut and we see all of the bills due. So I guess we could assume it's like I don't know, like oh shit, is that like a bill a month? Probably a bill a month, right? Or is it a bill like every week or 2 weeks or something? Either way, I can only assume that he was probably in there for at least like a month or like a couple months or something, you know? I think makes the most sense, only like the time thing, and also the fact that the people were actually, I guess that's the question, is like how long were they missing that they I was about to say how long were they missing that they made missing posters, but I feel like you could make a missing poster for someone missing like a day, you know, or missing like a week or whatever. That's fine. That's just that's how it goes, you know. Um, yeah, I mean, he, you know what? Yeah, he definitely had to be in there a while to be able to. Um, Here's the classic fucking question: where did he get that paint from so that he could paint the mural? You know, but obviously, like you got to consider, like there's probably a little bit of everything in there. Like they got a little bit of every. They got infinite housing. They got infinite food. They got infinite companionship. They got infinite space. You know, there's got to be some paint and some paint buckets and shit. You know, for all we know, maybe he found the power of conjuring. Maybe he was like, Backrooms, give me a paint bucket. Backrooms, give me a Sharpie, you know. And then it gave him like a Sharpie brand Sharpie that was like perfectly accurate for like some reason, because somehow like it remember I was I was literally about to be like, when were Sharpies made? I wonder like were Sharpies made in like the 80s? Like, when was the first Sharpie? I might actually look into that. Uh, oh man, okay. Um, oh, okay. I feel like this is probably gonna end up being the most like major long thing about this, honestly. Basically, I was thinking about like the because I was kind of seeing like YouTube comments and et cetera, basically talking about like the Backrooms as like an AI analogy. And like as an old AI analogy, kind of like how it looks, this kind of disquieting, like uncomfortable imagery or whatever that's kind of like slightly resembles like something familiar, but like is just slightly strange in some different way. But the thing I was thinking about, especially in the I think it was the Wendigo interview, because that was like the most recent thing I saw, was the way he talks about AI is from my understanding essentially saying that it's like a human made tool that obviously like can possibly have like some kind of positive usage, like I mean like any tool it has a usage, right? And yeah, I mean it's a good example. It's a good like synonym for this kind of thing, right? But the thing I think about in regards to the Backrooms and why I say like organic entity and stuff is that it's always existed. It's only the access to it has like existed now, like existed more recently, basically. So it's not necessarily something that like was kind of like created by humans to be possibly abused by humans or used by them or whatever. This is just something that's always been in the world. It's just we didn't have access to it. And it's like now that we have access to it, it's like again kind of going back, it's like the question is like what exactly do you do with this thing? And I think that's kind of an interesting conversation and kind of exactly why I'm kind of curious about those async stories and stuff, right? Kind of those conversations about like what are we using this for and what are we looking for inside of this? Because I think that's very interesting. I think there's a lot you could get from that, just from those like I almost said like Chernobyl, but I don't know if that's like the right term. That's kind of the thing I'm thinking of, like the intensity of these boardroom conversations, right? About like, well, what exactly are we doing with this, and like how are we going to make sure that we do this safely, but also like make sure that we get the big money, because we need the big bank off of this, right? Essentially. So yeah, I just think that's kind of an interesting situation, and I definitely kind of, even if it takes a little bit of the mystique or the mystery of async away, I would be curious to see it go down that angle a little bit, as well as obviously my like, oh man, Backrooms apocalypse kind of way, kind of idea, or not even apocalypse, but just like monster in the big city, babe in the big city, kind of concept. Um, Okay, yeah, I think it's. Oh, okay. Fun thing I was kind of thinking about in regards to like Mary's arc, which, oh man, I talked about escapism, but I didn't talk about the consequences. Okay. If you're a therapist, inevitably you will become the patient. That's not true. That's not true. That could be true. It might be true. Maybe I made it up. I don't know. With Mary, basically. So starting as the therapist, kind of talking to people, talking to Clark clearly in like a certain level of crisis, trying to understand what he's talking about, and basically just being like, "Are you okay? What's happening here?" And then for our ending to basically be like, even though the film doesn't literally start with the therapy session, I appreciate the way it starts because it's basically starting setting up Mary as kind of our secondary lead, because it is kind of a dual film, and it's kind of like once Clark quote unquote dies, once the Clark we know dies, because when she goes back in and she sees him later, that's not Clark. Like that's not exactly the same Clark that we saw in the beginning, because he's been driven mad by the Lovecraftian insanity of liminal spaces, But yeah, so with Mary, kind of Mary, basically having these conversations with him, like conversation with him in crisis, especially hearing him in crisis in the answering machine, the call or whatever. What does he say? It's like, because it relates to her book. It was like, I found the door or something, like I've unlocked the door, or some cryptic ass shit, and she's just like, what, and goes in, and then obviously eventually he's rescued or whatever, which I gotta admit, man, like, how were those gas things supposed to work? Because I was thinking about that and I was just like, I don't. So what? They're supposed to walk into it and then it sets it up because it didn't hit Clark at all. Captain Clark, the beast, just kind of skimmed past it. Like, I feel like it would work better if, I don't know, it has like cameras there and like sensors, and it's like, oh, okay, there's a thing here. So just move it up a little bit. Because all they were doing was just spraying his legs. He was just like, you know, they probably only got him when he actually came through or tried to come through, and they could just give him like a blast to the face, you know, and actually knock him out, you know. And possibly, well, no, because Mary gets knocked out by the stuff. So I guess they knocked him out and then neutral. Oh shit, what if they didn't kill him? Because I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure that it's just him on the operating table. So I wonder like if that was just him with like the night gas, or if he was actually like fucking like dead, like deady to dead, you know, and they were like about to start the autopsy, you know. But either way, Mary basically becomes the patient when she's talking to what's his name? Um Duplass. When she's talking to Duplass, you know. And essentially it's kind of the same thing about like well, why don't you tell me who you are, how are you feeling, exactly, etc., you know. And then like Clark probably did, kind of starts to just disassociate because it's just like, this shit doesn't matter, man, you know. This shit means nothing. This don't mean nothing to me, man, you know. Kind of just like stop caring, you know. I thought was just like, ooh, that's an interesting kind of full circle thing there, you know, and very well done. Um, Obviously leads to the reveal and lets a specifically uncomfortable type of ending, you know, because of that visual, that concept of just like, oh, okay, like everyone's in there, even though she's in there. So the only people that are in there seem to be people that are actively inside of there or people that are in their memory. So I was kind of curious of like, interesting. So is there a reason why we don't see the memory of the guy necessarily, or see the guy reflected in there, you know, considering the fact that like that is somebody that like she's seeing, that she's like actively creating, you know, creating a memory of. I was kind of curious about that. I was thinking about that like in general. I don't think there's anything else. Okay. I have one last thing, more of just a general thing I was thinking about of like, oh, I think this is like a cool concept and like probably not where this is going, but would be fun, and like feel free to take this because like there's so many fucking backrooms shit, and I'm not gonna be the one to create another backrooms analog horror offshoot or whatever with this idea. But basically, considering the original story and the first couple things in the series, you know, like before we see the mold being something that's created inside of the backrooms itself, I was thinking about the idea of the space being this kind of like dimensional gateway or whatever, and essentially anything from anywhere can fall into this. So like, yeah, fucking Cthulhu could just, I don't know, accidentally hit like a wall weird and fall into the back rooms, you know. And I mean, I don't know exactly how they work because it would be massive. I think better examples like an alien, you know, like a literal like alien like um comes in, like falls through or whatever, you know, and is now lost. And the horror of the concept of the situation, whatever, is basically it's just the act of being lost, you know, because it's universal. Like literally anything can fall into the space, like which I mean they kind of did an interesting thing, right? By basically like in the film showing that the spaces seem to be almost anywhere now because a fucking bird got in. Like I was feeling the exact same thing as the guy. Like when he was looking at it, I was like, wait, what? Like, how's that even happen? And then you see like the leaves and like the bit of the tree or whatever. I'm like, oh shit, okay. Like the the nexus points or whatever are expanding. You know, I was like, oh, this is interesting. But yeah, this is a general thing. Like I was like, oh, that's, I feel like you can kind of build on that, you know, a little bit, like the idea of like going through to this, and then like you're seeing like a something like you don't comprehend what it is, that's just as terrified as you are. If anything, it's been in there for like longer than you have, and it's just it's horrifying, right? Because it's just being lost. It's like that childish that childhood fear of basically just like getting lost in the mall or whatever, and just being like, oh god, like where's my mom? Where's my mom? Where's everybody? And it's like every exit is gone, kind of feeling, because it's just like where's this place? I don't understand the geometry. I'm small and I'm scared, and kind of extending that all the way to like Leap Glorp Alien or whatever, I think is kind of an interesting conceptual idea. But yeah, I think that was about it for everything that I kind of wanted to cover to talk about. It's so funny. I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to have anything to talk about." And then I talked for fucking like an hour, just about like assorted things. Um Again, movie's good. If you got if you got through this and you haven't seen the film, uh cool. Thank you. You know what? No, I don't know what I'm saying. There's a lot of people that will like consume shit that they don't care about spoilers, right? And also, I don't know how much I actually spoiled necessarily story stuff in this. Um, yeah, that's kind of a new-ish format for these, and I think this might be what I'll do. Is just kind of like have the list and just go through the list and let myself ramble, because I'm like, okay, cool. I got down like the main things that I wanted to talk about, And not a review, but the movie was good. Highly recommend it. I'm very curious to see what Kane does. I can definitely see that this was inspired by Mr. Robot. I mean, like, so much of the direction was like like, dude, anytime people were talking, it was like lower 2/3 of the corner of the screen, and I was like, yeah, that's some Sam Esmail direction right there. Yo, okay. Or like when fucking Clark is walking and he's like a tiny little like speck in the camera, and it's at such a distance. I was like, yeah, there you go. That's such a good shot. Like, I am okay. As soon as this like releases on digital or whatever, I need people to edit the cast out of it. Like Backrooms without people, Like just do shots from the film and just have them like out of it. I know it'll be tough, but I'm very curious to see that. Like, dude, his fucking office makes no sense. Like it's just like a weird corner that's just like jammed into, like, I know what it's doing. Like I've been in like office spaces or whatever that have felt like strange like that, but that can't be comfortable. Like he did not look comfortable in that space. Oh man, like seriously, just the general direction and the way that they balanced the spaces. Like they basically made like almost every space feel like so like liminal and like uncomfortable in this just specific way, was just very well done. Like the sky always seemed like it had the exact same shade of blue, and like the clouds were always just like perfect day clouds. It was like kind of like uncomfortable, It's just it's very well done. And I'm very curious. I'm trying to think. So we got Kreger on Resident Evil. I don't think we're having anyone doing Silent Hill or whatever, Um Liminal horror. I'm just like, I'm trying to think. I mean, Exit 8 has already been done. I never played it, but I understand that's pretty liminal horror stuff. I'm just trying to think about like, because we already know someone's gonna be like, hey man, I made this game and I want you to make the movie for this game, because like I was about to say with well, that's a media thing, but Obsession, what's his name? Curry Barker is doing Texas Chainsaw Massacre or whatever, So I'm kind of just curious about like what is our pixelated boy gonna get drafted into, and what's that gonna end up looking like? Because I think that might actually be the future, like YouTuber horror films. I don't want to make this a big thing, but I was actually thinking about this, and at first I was sorry to say it, but I'm kind of not. Shelby Oaks was kind of mid. Like that was the first one I saw, like in regards to like I think ones that released like this year or end of last year, and like I respect Chris Stuckman. I really do. I like his reviews. I like his stuff. I don't want to do like a whole thing talking about it, but I just thought it was fine. Like I liked it coming out of it, but I don't really remember too much of it. You know, it was a movie. You know, it was certainly a movie that existed. Um, Iron Lung was great. I didn't expect it to be like such a slow burn, or I guess I kind of assumed that was possible, but I actually kind of appreciate it, even though what the fuck was he saying for like 90% of that movie? I need to watch with subtitles. Um, Obsession was phenomenal. I can easily say that. Like, very, very creatively uncomfortable, and like a monkey's paw horror film is something I know exists, and I honestly it was like, okay, I need to watch more of these, because like I feel like there's so much you can do with that, of the idea of the wish gone wrong. It's really funny that it was inspired off of a Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. Like, not the original story, it was based off of that. And then it's so annoying. I was talking through a burp. I was like, oh, if I just talk, like I can just talk to it. But no, it happened anyway. You're welcome, by the way. Okay, and then obviously we got the big old biggity Backrooms, you know, and twas great. It was very good, you know, and I definitely need to watch all the films that inspired it, because Ken seems like he's got good taste, you know. I gotta admit that. So yeah, I think that was all I kind of wanted to speak to, you know. So funny. I did a technical outro and then went into more, because I always have more. There's always more. There's there's always, turn that rock over, buddy. There's always bugs under that rock. They're coming. They're coming for you. Liminal chase. You can't escape. There's the snail. You know what? That's what it is. You turn over that rock, it's actually a snail. It's the immortal snail. It's coming to kill you. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, um, turn around. It's too late. The snail's behind you. You're dead already. Anyway, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for checking this out. Um, I kind of realized that I think the best way to format these is basically like obviously talk about shit, but just these are background videos, you know. These are background podcast stuff, you know. Like, you just listen to this if you want to hear my general rambles about a thing that I liked, you know. So I'm gonna try and keep to that, and I'm gonna attempt to make more of these in the background, while I'm posting the music stuff, and while I'm posting the videos. Um yeah, I don't think I said it already, but I did want to say a big thank you to everybody that watched the Plunderphonics video. Um, it was literally, fuck, I may have talked about this already, but it was literally like a school speech or whatever that I did, and I just kind of like uh, did it, and then was like, oh, you know what, maybe I could like format this into like something else, you know. And so I was like, okay, cool. So then I kind of turned it into that, and I was like, oh, you know what, yeah, this is cool. Obviously the older version did it was more like generalized. Like, I'm pretty sure I did literally start with like Jay Dilla, and like go into like different like more specifically classical artists. But I kind of realized that I wanted to do something just like literally for myself. And for myself was basically just talking about like albums I liked and artists I like, you know. Speaking of that, I listened to virtually all of Death's Dynamic Shroud's music, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, this is good. This is very good, you know. That was fun. That was a fun time. Technically, because I didn't listen to like all of the compilations and stuff, because there is some albums that are just like compilations of old stuff. Um, yeah, but I don't think there's anything else. Videos will be coming. In an indeterminate, indefinite amount of time. There will be actual like scripted video essay type things. Get ready for those. Um, for those that are like watching, I'm kind of sorry, because I don't think I'm going to like, I don't, unless editor me decides to put things out. I'm probably going to keep it extremely simple. It might literally just be text, because I kind of just want to make these and just get these out. Like, I think this works as kind of just a general thing. Um, but yeah, so fuck, how do you end a video?